There is no way around the Strait of Hormuz. The Gulf's billion-dollar escape routes can only carry half the oil. July 14, 2026. Can we go around the Strait of Hormuz? How to blunt Iran's geographic advantage. For decades, Iran's greatest strategic advantage has been its control over the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow waterway through which roughly 20% of global oil and LNG exports pass. Since late February 2026, amid Iran's war with the United States and Israel, the strait has been effectively closed after Tehran warned it would attack vessels attempting to transit. Oil flows have collapsed from around 20 million barrels per day to only a small fraction, creating what the International Energy Agency calls the largest oil supply shock in history. The disruption has accelerated efforts by Gulf countries to develop export routes that bypass Hormuz. Saudi Arabia already possesses the region's most viable alternative, the East-West Pipeline, Petroline, which carries crude from the Persian Gulf to the Red Sea port of Yanbu. Originally built during the Iran-Iraq War, it now handles about 77% of Saudi crude exports, operating near its capacity of 5 to 7 million barrels per day. Saudi Aramco is reportedly considering a major expansion that could add another 2 million barrels per day, along with new Red Sea export terminals and pipelines for refined products. Because the project lies entirely within Saudi territory, analysts consider it the fastest and most practical bypass option. Iraq faces a far more difficult situation. Most of its oil is produced around Basra and remains dependent on Hormuz, leaving storage facilities overflowing after exports were disrupted. Baghdad is expanding the Kirkuk-Ceyhan pipeline to Turkey and studying new pipelines connecting Basra with Turkey, Jordan, and Syria. A particularly significant proposal is the revival of the Kirkuk-Banias pipeline to Syria's Mediterranean coast, abandoned since 1982. Following the fall of the Assad regime in 2024, the project has become part of the broader Turkey-Syria Four Seas initiative, supported by U.S. officials as a potential route allowing Iraqi and Gulf oil to reach the Mediterranean without passing through Hormuz. Qatar, however, remains the most vulnerable because its exports consist primarily of liquefied natural gas, LNG. Unlike crude oil, LNG cannot easily be transported through conventional pipelines, requiring specialized refrigerated infrastructure. Qatar has explored concepts such as pipelines across Saudi Arabia or a long-proposed pipeline to Turkey, but these remain expensive, long-term possibilities with no immediate solution. Despite these projects, bypassing Hormuz remains extremely challenging. Existing and proposed routes together could eventually handle around 10 million barrels per day, only about half the strait's former capacity. For LNG, replacement capacity is even more limited. Moreover, alternative infrastructure is itself vulnerable. During the current conflict, Iran has already attacked Saudi Arabia's East-West pipeline and the UAE's Fujairah export terminal with drones. Future pipelines and terminals could face similar threats, while routes through politically unstable countries such as Iraq and Syria would create new strategic choke points. The long-term impact is mixed. Massive investments in alternative infrastructure are gradually reducing Iran's monopoly over Gulf energy exports, permanently weakening one of Tehran's strongest geopolitical tools. However, no realistic combination of pipelines can fully replace the Strait of Hormuz, and Iran will continue to retain significant leverage over global energy markets for many years. The Gulf states may become less dependent on Hormuz, but they are unlikely to eliminate that dependence entirely. By National Security Journal, story by Harry J. Kazianis.